Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the workshop of the BOCC. Would you all please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first thing on our agenda is a discussion with our emergency manager as it pertains to the generator grant letter. Mr. Spratlen.
Afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Miss Kim, Ian, and Travis. So, you already approved the commitment letter for the grant for the generators. And then I was told by the federal government that they wanted pennies. So I couldn't round up or round down on thousands of dollars. I said, all right, great. All the other grants that we do for Homeland Security, they're always rounded up or down. This one, the feds decided they wanted the other end. So so we changed that, so we have pennies in there now, and then every grant I've done for Homeland Security, they don't allow M&A because I'm already getting paid through the Emergency Managers Fund, so they don't allow me that funding for M&A. This one they do. So we got an extra $8,111 that I can claim, putting in the hours to manage this grant for the next 2 years. So with that, we get the extra money and we have to pay 10% of it, which is $811. So for $811, we get 700 and something, or 7,000 some odd extra dollars. So that's been calculated in that new spreadsheet right there. So our amount that we would pay out, 17,048.64, and that will include the in-kind that maintenance does on these projects as well. So it'll drop significantly, pretty sure. So that's the new one. That's the new agreement. And as soon as, if you agree to it, you sign it tomorrow, then I can put it in that grant. It's already been submitted, so we're within the deadline, no problem. It's just I have to now alter all my budget and a few other things, which I've already done. Everything's done except for this letter. So okay. Just ask you all to approve the extra $800 that we may have to pay for the extra 7,000 that we're going to get. So worked out good okay. Overall. So that's the only changes in it.
All right.
Questions?
No. Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
We do have this for unfinished business tomorrow also.
Yep.
Okay.
And I should be here without, unless something happens.
Okay.
I'll be here if you have any questions.
If not, we have all of the dollars and cents anyway. We've went over this,
Yep. And this,
several times.
Unless I get called between now and tomorrow, this is the official one. And they said they would review it all to make sure I'm spot on. So
Okay.
we should be all right.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. We will review it tomorrow. Okay. Ms. Purcell, we're going to talk about 2023 election equipment.
Yes, sir. Do you want me down there or up here, or does it
You're
matter?
fine.
Okay.
You're fine right
Okay.
there.
So, you guys have already seen the proposals that we were presented from both Clear Ballot and from Dominion. Dominion is a refresh agreement. It's extending our master service agreement, replacing and updating some of the current equipment. Looks like it's gonna run us around $33,000 for the next 6 years. There was supposed to be a partial reimbursement for the new ballot marking printers that their Secretary of State wanted. And this is also going to eliminate any and all computer Wi-Fi or Bluetooth capabilities in any of the computers. And then with Clear Ballot, it would be a current purchase option, complete replacement of equipment that we have. It's $125,800 after second year annual fees of $19,500 a year. It's a 5-year rough estimate lease option. The equipment is $27,000 plus annual fees of $19,500 would be around $47,500 per year. There's only 2 other counties in the state that use Clear Ballot. And I think I had sent you guys a letter from one of the clerks that currently uses it a while back for your review. So I think Ian would like to talk to you about the Clear Ballot contract as well. We haven't got that one cleared away.
Yeah, so there were just a couple things in the Clear Ballot contract that were a little bit concerning to me. The biggest thing was there's a clause in there that says that we'll only be able to access records once per year unless law otherwise allows. We did flag that language and send it back to Clear Ballot, and they were unwilling to remove that. I mean, certainly, a lot of times when we need to inspect the kind of information that would be in those Clear Ballot systems, there's going to be a law that's going to allow it. But at the same time, the fact that there's that limitation was a little bit disconcerting to me. I mean, ultimately, as a customer and as a consumer, we need to be able to inspect records whenever we want to inspect them, not just when we've got some law that says you can. I mean, in my mind, we should be able to inspect just because we want to. And so that was certainly a concerning piece of that contract. There was also quite a bit of language in there that disclaimed any liability on the part of Clear Ballot. And so I think, just from a contractual perspective and because of those 2 things, the Dominion contract is probably superior in that it doesn't have the limitation on inspections and there's not the sizable disclaimer of liability.
Okay, what are your recommendations, Ken?
So, my recommendation is to go with the refresh from Dominion. We currently use the Dominion product. We have not had any difficulty with the product whatsoever. We haven't had any issues. They've always been very supportive of us when we're in trouble as far as, any kind of a question or anything like that. So that would be my recommendation, would be Dominion.
And looking at the cost, it would be quite a bit less too, right? If you look at the $33,000 for the 6 years,
Right.
so that's what we're basically refreshing to is another 6 years, which would be $198,000. And the other one, if you said we're at $47,500 per year for 5 years, that's $237,500.
Which would be a complete new equipment too.
Right.
So, yeah,
The $125,800 would be the complete new equipment.
right.
Yeah. Any other questions? Obviously, with the
No,
contract language, it's far
And the
superior.
contract language in and of itself, I mean, it's not a huge difference. It's a somewhat minor thing because ultimately, I mean, usually we're going to have laws behind us that are going to allow us to do that inspection. But certainly, if you're just looking at the contracts next to each other, the Dominion contract's probably superior. And then the cost thing is a whole nother thing for you guys to consider.
Okay. Questions?
No.
Okay,
Thank you,
Okay.
I'm
Ken.
here if you do.
Gosh, thank you. Mr. Englehart, you are up next. We're going to talk about some John Deere leases. As far as how it pertains to our motor graders.
Okay, so this was the year that we were going to buy out of a lease on some blades here. We get 6 every 2 years. So on the spreadsheet, I'm showing the top 2 is the 2020 models. We bought those at $265,000, but we're going to use some equity off of the 2022s right below it. Each one of those blades has $60,000 worth of equity involved in them that we can pull. So we're going to take $120,000 out of the 2 below it, add it to the 2 above it, and do a complete buyout this year on 2 blades for $290,000. And I was in here several months ago and asked for a little bit more money, but I was going to use all the equity to do it then. So since then, we've restructured this a little bit to allow some consistency over the next 5 years on this lease program. Excuse me. The blades are going up so much now, we can't get equity no more. Because if you see the new price now in 2022 is $360,000 versus 2 years ago, $265,000. We're spending our equity to keep the payments lower due to the price increases of new equipment. So right now, what I think the best opportunity for us to do is pull $290 out of our capital outlay this year and buy those 2020 blades. One of them has 1,500 hours, the other one has 1,400, as I recall. So those are two blades that just are minimal use, only in the winter, a little bit in summer, and they're like new, and they're gonna be done with their warranty this next year. So we got 3 years on it. So we still got a full year of warranty on these two blades. And then the next two blades, 2022, those are coming in. I switched them over to zero rollover equity on a 5-year extended warranty for 6 years. And at the end of 6 years, or 5 years, we can buy those blades for $85,000 a piece and buy those out. So they'll be low hours with still another year of warranty on them when we purchase those. And then the two that we signed a contract for here a couple months ago, or about a month ago, they'll still roll over $60,000 in equity. We'll try it one more time and see how it works with just two. And the only reason we're doing this is because the cost of equipment's going up faster than we can get equity. And we can buy two out now, two more in 5 years, and give us a game plan for the next 5 years that's consistent with our budget, and we know how to budget this thing. Because it's just too wild out there right now. So I'm here to ask you today for the $290,000 change on our capital outlay that wasn't in our 2022 budget. I don't even know if we'll need to do that this year. We might even swing it into next year's budget.
I'm not sure we even have to do that, Rob. Travis and I looked at that budget. It will be over your capital outlay budget item now.
Right.
But that'll show red, but you're not gonna overspend your budget. I don't
Well, we've
see.
still got 2 months and we haven't paid all of our bills yet. So
Right.
Correct.
we're kind of like, we may have to, we may not, but we don't need to make a decision on this tomorrow.
No, because
All
we
need
can
to
do
is-
we can do a line item, or
Yeah.
not a line item,
Budget
an
transfer.
adjustment, a budget adjustment at the end of the year to
Right.
see, because
If we need to
obviously,
do
you're
it,
right.
right.
Yeah, you still have 2
We may
months
be
left.
okay. We may come in under what we think we will.
Yeah.
And, I mean, we're projecting about 80,000 black at the end of the year.
Yeah.
But
So-
we may save a little on fuel here or there or something to make it work, so.
I think we're gonna be real close,
Yeah.
but, yeah, it's gonna show this year is that line item for sure is gonna
Right.
be overspent, but.
And I'm really not
budget's
looking
gonna
for
be
a-
spent.
Looking to do this today on the money part, paying the bills. I'm more or less, is this plan workable for the commissioners tomorrow
Right.
to vote yes or no and go ahead and make the plan and go with it, so.
Right.
That's kind of what I'm looking for, so.
So, like I said, guys, Travis and I and Phaedra looked at the money part of it. We can obviously do the 290 out of the funds that are there for the road and bridge. It's just a matter if you want to do the 2022s for the 5 years, and roll those into the buyout at the 85.5, and then look at the other 2022s,
Yeah.
for that 2-year term.
And you got, I don't show all this, but the 2022s is only $3,000 a year more for each one of those blades on a lease than the 2022s at the bottom with the equity. So I don't want to use our equity to help keep our payments down. That's silly to use equity to do that. I'd rather buy out two, put two on a 5-year plan, and keep two out there floating around. If we want to roll them, we can. If we want to put them on another plan in 2 years, we can. We got a lot of flexibility here. But I think the game's over. I think sooner or later these lease things come to an end, they mature out, and it's time to get out of them. So, and with the market the way it is right now with new and used and leasing, it's just more sensible to start buying this stuff out. So.
I agree.
Any other question?
No.
Okay. Questions?
No,
Okay.
I don't.
Good plan.
Yeah.
So I guess tomorrow you guys can vote on my idea
Correct.
here and as unfinished business and.
Yep,
I'll
we'll look at
proceed.
under unfinished business.
Okay.
You don't, if you want to be here, fine. You don't have to be here. This will be the same display that we talk about.
I may try
tomorrow
to be
make a
here if
decision.
Honan can get their paperwork today out of John Deere Finance, and I'll be able to let you sign it tomorrow if it gets here. So I may
Okay.
be here for that. But other than that, I'll just let it vote. Go. So,
Yeah, and if, once we approve it, whenever it comes in, then we can get it
Okay.
signed, anytime after that.
Okay.
All right,
Okay, thank you.
all right. All right, thank you, Rob. Next, we have a discussion with County Technical Services. Marylin? Wagner? Come on down, hello.
How are you?
Great, how are you?
Sit here, or do I need to be there?
Either way.
You can sit, you can, yeah. Just pull it up close to you so that you can,
And just a reminder, if you didn't remember who in the world I am.
Sure.
So, good to see you again. All right. So I appreciate again your time each year from County Technical Services, CTSI. We like to do this presentation to all of our member counties. And just for the record, to recap, Marylin Wagner, I am with the Loss Control Services of County Technical Services. CTSI is the insurance pool operator for Montezuma County's workers' comp insurance. And of course, my role is to come out and do training, risk management, talk about loss trends, talk about resources that we have in terms of trying to prevent losses from occurring or trying to mitigate how severe they may become in the effort of all of those types of controls, of training, of looking at our policies, of looking at risk management. And one of those ways is this report, and I believe you do have this obviously electronically, that we look at our trends of not only where your county has been in 5 years, but how you might compare to the other member counties. CTSI is an insurance pool only for counties of Colorado, as you're well aware. And so when we do compare, we are only comparing you to other experience of other counties with kind of like and kind operations. Part of what I do in this meeting too is just to give you a very high level of the insurance pools themselves, and I'm pulling out this booklet from the winter conference from last year. In fact, this is an extra copy, should you like to see it. I realize you are only in one of the pools, you're not in the liability pool, but that booklet in the yellow section is the workers' comp, which will give you the information on your own county, on the loss experience of other counties, how the whole pool is trending, what the formulas are for calculating your contribution. And I'm going to talk just a little bit as to the 30,000 foot of where those pools ended last year. And the workers' comp pool, of course, we have to keep back equity for insurance regulations for paying any other claims. But the equity at the end of last year in the cap pool, and I'm pulling the number out of that book, was 15.3 million. And as you're aware also how the pools work is that we distribute back equity to our members of any of those monies that don't have to be kept back for regulations. And 1.9 million was distributed last year. As well, we distribute interest income back to the members. So what does that drill down to this year for your own county's contribution? And again, I don't have this written on that report, but I'm pulling it out of the book. But your contribution starts at a base of a little over $315,000. And remember, workers' comp covers your employees, your statutory volunteers, and any appointed board members. Those are all persons who are covered by the workers' comp insurance. So $315,000 to start at a base, but then we modify that by a loss factor. Part of that is this graph that you're seeing now. We only take the oldest 3 of the 5 years on this graph so that we can have maybe a longer look back where claims have settled and taking that loss factor. You do see that your older years on this graph were higher years. In fact, it goes kind of off the chart, just relative to how this chart is set up. I know that doesn't, probably not the expression you want to hear, but But as you also are well aware, how the insurance pools work, it's not like normal insurance, regular insurance. We cap you at a high end and a low end to keep you being able to figure out and plan for your budgets each year by if you do have a bad experience year, just a higher experience year, that it technically doesn't go off the chart for your loss factor. We cap you at a certain high level. Now, currently, your loss factor is a 1.07. If you think of 1.0 as break even, you are slightly above that. And that's just due to some of those older years' experience. The good news is, as you look at this graph, the oldest years will drop away. These lower years that you've had in the last 2 or 3 are going to be coming on eventually, helping you to lower that loss factor. That will decrease the factor that's applied to your base. Then you also got your portion of the equity return, and that was a little over $29,000. You also get your portion of interest return. All of that comes into play with a result of a little over $308,000 for workers' comp for Montezuma County for this year. And the good news again is that you're coming down. It looks like your stats from last year, you probably have sent in new ones because this number was from last year, but that covered 371 persons for your workers' comp. Yes, this first colored graph it says at the top, county by division. Division is just another word for department. We see the frequency of claims, so the numbers of claims that were turned in, and then the severity is just how those claims developed into dollars. So the bar graph at the top is the frequency by the division, by the department, and then severity at the bottom. So I do see some trending in frequency for workers' comp. You can obviously read the total that you had over the 5 years and see which departments they came from. And what I always want to point out is to make sure that you are always turning in all claims, because as a claim develops and the dollars that are generated from it, that's what that loss factor number I previously mentioned is derived from. So it's the dollars, not the frequency. Turn claims in so our claims management can work toward getting a case manager on it, or resolving it in some way, or getting that person the treatment that they need before it develops into possibly something that might be more costly. So turning in claims is always the right thing to do, and get our claims management working on it. But, and again, this is not really to point fingers at any one department, but we do understand that some departments.
But we are pointing fingers.
Some have.
If you look at the graph, we're pointing fingers.
The graph does show. I will point out, by the way, I actually just came from the sheriff's office. This year we did a report kind of such as this. In fact, I'll have another copy here I'll give before I leave. Of every couple of 3 years, we run a loss analysis on our sheriff's operation for all counties, not just any one, because they do have unique exposures, because they do have to deal with so many dangerous situations that do result potentially in injuries and arrest and operating the jail and driving a vehicle, which can result in injuries and training. All of those things come into play. So we did this report for them in order that they might also sit down when they look at their policies, their procedures, their training. If it's not a trend in our county, maybe it's showing in the rest of the member counties, other counties that operate such as we do, and trying to look for some of those resolutions. I know they do a lot of training. They have a lot of exposures as well. And if we flip to the next colored graph, that starts to tell us a little bit more, however, on it's this by accident, so the types of claims that occurred now. And you can start to see, and these are just the major categories. The others category is just those that didn't have enough to make their own little column on the bar graph. Anything below 10, basically, on frequency. But we see the major categories, and we do start to see some trends when we look at slips and falls. We look at this category called body mechanics, which is just musculoskeletal injuries. We do have other categories of pushing, pulling, and lifting, but I sort of lump them all together. Something in the physicality of a job that we perform in our various departments. And so the solutions are going to be different by the department, just because of the very fact that each of these might come from a different reason. Law enforcement has that physicality of dealing with maybe an arrest suspect, but Road and Bridge has something else. They lift heavy equipment and get exposed to different types of ways to be injured. So, and I will point out on the bottom of that graph on the first category, the body mechanics, we did have a claim that was probably 2/3 of just that one amount. In 2018, I believe it had to do assisting with an arrest was a little bit more information on that, and so we know that sometimes one claim can result in a lot of dollars. That shows it's not necessarily a trending indication of a problem, but it was just that one-time factor, and eventually that one will drop away from your loss history as well. The next pages, I believe there's next 4 pages, is each department broken down and sub-departments from within. All of this information on these next 4 pages is what was just represented in those graphs. So if you're wondering again what the others category was, it's on these lists. It's just in here because it was a smaller number. And so again, we put it all together here by the department and by the type of claim, and if there was more than one type of claim, it carries out to an average over in the far right column. And you can peruse down and you can start to see some of the individual claims or some of the individual categories of where the dollars may have happened. If there's a $0, it's just simply because we were able to, there was just no medical treatment, or it didn't result in any cost, but it was turned in, which is the proper thing to do, once again, so that we can try to work on it and process it. There are a few claims that were of a higher dollar category. They just were a more severe injury, and that's what also has affected the severity to some amount. If I go all the way to this this page 5, and what I did basically is just kind of look for the trends. Just kind of at the end of that set of numbers and departments. If I roughly calculated out, slips, trips, and falls were about 17% of your claims. Body mechanics, about 11%. Everything else that I lump into this musculoskeletal type injury is another 18%. All of those totaled, just those 3 totaled, is about 45% of your ways that workers are getting injured in the county. Something physical. It's a slip, trip, fall. It's lifting. It's pushing, pulling. It's maybe an object that was thrown. Sometimes we have that as a category. You'll see these different ways it's described. So what do we do about it? So again, the solutions are going to be different by the departments because we have such differing. Road and Bridge isn't like maybe our administrative offices. Law enforcement is just a different animal than everyone else. So we have to look to each department and perhaps, supervisors in each of those departments on solutions. Sometimes the best solutions are from within, but generally I would always say training. How do we lift properly? How do we think about material handling, for example? Do we break down a load? Do we try to get mechanical assistance? Do we use some sort of mechanical carts or dollies instead of trying to just pick up and move heavy loads? Do we have some ways of maybe rethinking that job, rethinking that task? Training may very well just be different by the exposure, by the department. We're here to provide you with resources, with training. We've got either the classes I can do in person to come out. We have, in the last couple of years, with COVID, with all of the kind of the changes in recent times, we've added many more classes online. We've got our own classes recorded, but we've also subscribed to an outside service called Biz Library. We can have your department supervisors sign up, be able to present small class trainings. Maybe they're new hires, onesies, twosies again, that aren't maybe appropriate for a classroom setting. New hire that comes in and is going to get set up at a computer workstation. I've got a class just to how to properly set yourself up, to have the proper alignment. Ergonomics is a claim that often can be under our workers' comp and be a serious injury. For those who are sitting 6, 7, 8 hours a day at that computer, it can result in injuries. So please feel free to always reach out to me and ask what those resources might be able to be. The last page, the very last page, is all of our membership of the workers' comp pool, and again, a 5-year look back. And you'll see here the number. So this is categorized basically by the severity, or you see that the dollars, that middle claim is what's at the top. And the top claim for all our members is slips, trips, and falls. In some form or fashion, slipping and falling, whether that is climbing on equipment or a ladder from our maybe facilities or road and bridge, or it's stepping in a hole, or it's stepping off a sidewalk, or it's slipping and falling on ice. I have been reviewing claims that have come in from our counties. I do see a trend of slips and falls on ice. I have been encouraging counties to think about ice cleats for those jobs that are in and out of doors often, like the law enforcement side, road and bridge, facilities. Good footwear is going to be key. We don't want to create another problem by having ice cleats and then walking maybe on a hard floor such as this and then going down. They make them to where there's different styles, sometimes just the arch, sometimes just the heel. Not all of these slips and falls are ice, obviously, but if I look at those top 3, they come up to almost 1,800 claims, and if I count up the dollars, it's over 18 million. If we can affect, as a pool, if we can affect just those first 3 types of categories, not only are we preventing and reducing folks from getting injured, and because these injuries go home with them, they're not just for the job, but we reduce the cost for the pools as well. You can simply look at that first category, or actually all 3 of them at the top, and any one of those, slips and falls, body mechanics, or lifting, has an average cost of $10,000. So someone slips and falls, potentially $10,000. Potentially. Not, obviously, we've got a lot of those that are very small amounts, but it just goes to show that some of those injuries, I remember reading one from last winter, walked from the shop going to the equipment, slips and fall on the parking lot ice, and now we're in spinal surgery and lifelong injuries. So, could something like just better footwear or ice cleats have stopped something like that from happening? Each department will have to take a look at their exposures. Supervisors will have to look at how they might be able to control some of those exposures, but come to us for resources or just trying to talk it through and how we might be able to work together on preventing folks from getting these types of injuries. That's all I have. Is there any questions on this report?
I don't really have any. I was pretty much amazed at the 89 that were reported. I mean, if you take the top two, basically our sheriff's department and then road and bridge, which is 15 compared to the 89, I mean, that's significant. The rest of our departments are 15,
about the
14,
same.
12 are pretty minimal. How do you combat road conditions that they're out there dealing with every day? I mean, there's just not really a lot of, when you look at the top three, body mechanics, I mean, yeah, that can be dealt with. But depending on what kind of altercation you're in, how good are your body mechanics when you're just trying to get, you know, out of
Some,
the way? So slip, trip, and fall. Gosh, I don't know.
slip, and one of and here I'm going to give this to you in a second. This is the report that I just mentioned that we had for the sheriffs. So it's just sheriffs, Montezuma sheriff's claims, and then wherever it doesn't say Montezuma at the top is the rest of the membership. So the top three for Montezuma Sheriff's Office were inmate related. Of course, no one else has that exposure. Training, because they do get injured in training when they are learning tactics, and we talked about that in our meeting previously, and they try not to go full on, but they have to go to where it's realistic, of course. But they do use protection. We see training as one of the, and it does show up on the overall for all counties. Training comes in at $2.1 million of injuries for all membership from our sheriff's departments. And slips and falls for Montezuma was a top third. So let me give this to you. That will help. That will help explain somewhat of what their injuries are, and they do have a uniqueness that perhaps none of our other departments do have, but still, absolutely, we want to look at, internally, we want them to look at how they might be able to think about reducing those trends, those types of injuries. So what I did is provided that report to them. I want them to be able to maybe sit down with some of the staff meetings and think about some of the ways they might be able to address some of those trends. And yes, they are trending, slightly high from that department. They are a larger department as far as related to the rest of the county. You do operate a jail, and that's a big exposure as well for injuries. So we provide this to you just for, again, this reason of knowing where you are, knowing how to compare to the other members of this pool, and to either look from within for solutions and always come to us as well if we can help with trying to understand where maybe some of the other counties have had some success in controlling some of these exposures as well.
Okay. I think historically, they're always going to be much higher.
More than likely.
With the jail, obviously, and then what they're doing out there on the streets. So.
Absolutely. Unique exposures, 24/7 in cars on the road, exposures to arrest situations, all types of weather. Always trying to encourage them to do the best they can, but they're out doing a very difficult job, absolutely.
Questions, gentlemen?
I don't have any.
All right, well,
Okay.
thank you so much.
All right.
I appreciate the time, and please reach out if I can help in any way.
Sure, appreciate it.
Thank you,
All
Marilyn.
right, thank you.
Thank you.
Hopefully, more training.
And training is online as well. If I can't get here when you want me to, we have some of that training that's online as well. And, please come to me if you've got any questions on how to find it. ctsi.org. Do a registration on the video login button if you haven't already, and you can start drilling down. If you click on anything that you can't get to, it's probably because I also need to do an additional sign up in the background for access to our Biz Library online classes as well. But we can get you set up for any of those or any of the departments.
Okay.
So, all right.
All right.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.
I appreciate your time.
You bet.
All right. We're going to move right along here. Doug and James, come on down. We're going to talk about a right-of-way request.
Okay, good afternoon, gentlemen. So the request that we've got before us today is kind of the result of some work that we've been doing with the BLM. The BLM has reached out to us, and they were aware of a number of roads that provide access out to Canyons of the Ancients that have been used extensively over the years, roads that we're all probably fairly familiar with. But they are also aware that some of these roads do not necessarily have a formal right-of-way. And the one that I'm particularly referring to is the one that crosses Gail Alexander's property, and it goes out there down Yellow Jacket Point. Anyway, there are several other roads out there that have a sort of a similar situation. But as you can see from the map, this road, it's a county road, and it ends at the Alexander property, and then extends across her property, and then continues down Yellow Jacket Point, and I think that's 4278. I think I can't read that from here.
4528.
I just got back from the eye doctor. Apparently, I didn't pass my test either. But anyway, these are the types of kind of lingering roads that we have out in the county. We all have kind of assumed that these are public right-of-ways. But when we get down to it, technically that crosses her property, and of course it's shown as a red road on that map. Although we all know that the public uses it pretty frequently. I had an opportunity to talk with Gail. She felt like that road, from the way she looked at it, it was always a public right-of-way, and she was kind of a little bit surprised that there was an actual deeded right-of-way associated with that. So what we're here today is to just make the request that we could follow through, work with Gail on that, and Gail is asking that we would take a look at this as far as being a public right-of-way, and possibly converting this over to a green signed road.
So,
And so-
are we green signed road? I can't really tell right there, but right to the top?
Up to that point, yeah.
To the top of her property.
What's the length of that road?
So is that a mile block that we're looking at?
I don't know if that's really quite a mile. See, Doug can get this figured out here pretty quickly. I
It's not a
think.
section.
It's about 0.6 of a mile meandering across her property.
So it's a red sign road right now, so what's the benefit of us making it a green sign road?
Okay, so I think that the benefit is that we continue to allow public access on a road that's traditionally had public access across it, and that provides the access down Yellow Jacket Point down there. That's what I call it. I don't know if that's really the geographic name for it. But as it crosses her property, then it continues on down that BLM, and it goes quite a ways down there. I'm going to say probably 2 or 3 miles at least, maybe even farther than that. But it's a pretty extensive road that continues on down to the west from there. So the purpose is really to continue to provide public access on a road that has traditionally had that public access.
How is that road currently maintained, James? Is that maintained by the property owner? Does BLM maintain that? Do you know?
I'm assuming that probably Kinder Morgan maintains that. I don't know that for a fact, but they do have facilities that are further on down that road. And you know how it is out there. They do a lot of the maintenance on it.
Okay.
Rob, have you had any input into this?
No, I know where they're at, I know what you're talking about, but I haven't talked to them about it.
So as far as once we turn it into a green sign road, then we take over all the maintenance on it.
Well, I think Jim's right about King Morgan, they're down there way more than we are, even on the green section, so I think we would probably just inherently continue to be that way with King Morgan, but it would give us the ability to do it if we need to, or somewhere down the road.
Because-
Or continue with Morgan, yeah. Right now, we'd stop at the top and we wouldn't go any further.
I mean, what would be, the process we'd be doing is acquiring a public right-of-way,
Yep.
which then it becomes a green road on a road map.
Right.
The maintenance schedule of that would be determined separately, but we're looking at acquiring it as a public right-of-way.
So from a legal perspective, I mean, it's really a pretty simple legal process. Basically, you get a deed from the property owner, you file that deed with the clerk and recorder. I think that the potential costs involved here, and then a question that you guys are gonna have to determine if you wanna go through with this is whether you wanna get a survey of that section of road. That certainly would probably be the most seamless way. I mean, if you get that section of road surveyed, then you can attach that onto a deed and you know the exact points of the road. So if in the future there's any sort of dispute about right of way through there, there's no issue. That would be my suggestion if you want to move through with this, get this surveyed, get exact points, get your right of way mapped out, and then go ahead and, I mean, assuming the property owner's interested, have her deed it to us, and then from then on, it's a public right of way. The other option would be to do a less specific legal description. Obviously, that would be cheaper, but on the flip side, then you run into all sorts of issues if in the future, for some reason, that property changes hands, and then all of a sudden you've got a dispute. Well, was the road here? Was the road here? Historically, it's been here. Now it's here. It's just a lot cleaner to have a survey.
So the fiscal note would be the survey, whatever that amounts to, and then how we set up, which is kind of separate of the scheduled maintenance toward it, because both of them are gonna, there'll be a fiscal note with each one of them. And before we make that kind of a decision, I think we should really have some numbers in front of us. What really is it gonna be?
What kind of surface is on this road now? Is it just a dirt road?
It looks to me like it's a gravel surface at this point.
Roth, do you have any?
Yeah, it's gravel, because Kinder Morgan gravel, back with, those wells up there. So the green section, scroll up,
Just go. Can you look?
from right there, where it stops, the green, that was Joe Mahaffey's place there, that's all rocked in and gravelled. From there back to the main road up by the plant. And then the red road is gravelled with sandstone on down through there, because Kinder Morgan was building those well locations out there. So I think it was Utley's that went in there and gravelled all that. And then I don't know, from Gail's place on out, I don't know what's on out there. I'm assuming there's, Leroy Oliver has a couple of well locations out there. I'm betting that Kinder Morgan probably rocked it in, Joe. At least with sandstone.
Just because it became a public right-of-way, though, wouldn't mean that we would necessarily have to assume any sort of additional maintenance
Right,
responsibilities.
right. Two different things, and I realize we're talking about that, but,
And then,
So what if you make this a public right of way and then they decide they're gonna build a subdivision down there in that deal? This property owner.
Well, that could happen as well.
yeah.
You know, I'm not making a value judgment either way, whether it's a good or bad idea. I was just mostly just talking about the process through which the right of way would be acquired.
And just one thing to consider is that if this was then a green sign road, and assuming we at least touched a blade on it once a year, we could add it to the HETF schedule, which would then net some money. So I think you would probably come out ahead with the HETF reimbursements if you at least touch a blade on it once a year. Is kind of the part of the equation.
I've got a question, is it right away or easement we're after? Guys, there's a difference between the two.
We're asking for a right-of-way.
That's the way that I understand. Is that what you guys are asking for? It would be a right of way, right? Yeah.
If we're going for something, it would be an actual deeded right of way.
So it would be a 60-foot right-of-way.
I always get lost in this one, but an easement to me is a simpler way of doing it, but a right-of-way works too, yeah. You just gotta remember, there's not very many right-of-ways out there.
Right, most of our roads are easements.
Almost 99% of them, yeah. And I don't know if this is the right way or the wrong way, I just know that it's different, so.
I guess that's.
I mean, him and I talk about that 60-foot easement all the time, it works very well. And then you throw a right-of-way in there and it can work opposite of that at times, so.
And maybe it would be the landowner preference because the landowner's still taxed under a.
I mean, ultimately, what we'd be looking to do, as I understand it, is create a 30-foot right-of-way, public highway through there. I mean, so.
But I don't know. I personally would make it green because of the liability to the landowner. If the landowner chose to close it off, they can, simply for the fact they don't want people in there tearing stuff up or driving off and having a wreck or whatever. If the landowner's willing to give up an easement, 60-foot easement or right-of-way through there and the county takes over, then we have a road that's open to the public, that the public can use without suing Gail Alexander, because there was a bump in the road or something. So if I was the landowner, I'd be going, well, if there's gonna be one here, let's make it right. That's what I would look at it. Or I'd put a fence up and a gate and say, nobody's allowed in there.
Unless they have agreements with,
Well,
obviously,
Kinder
Kinder
Morgan,
Morgan
well,
or BLM.
Yeah, exactly. This is kinda almost like we did on Y and whatever that was right now.
Right, we just took that road off. We just eliminated it.
We've never had this road. Just because it's red don't mean we have it.
No, correct. Yeah, this one's,
Yeah. And I don't know why it's red other than it got painted red. It really is private land, so.
Yeah, it's just a connector. It's just showing that there's a connector. It's in use. It's named. It's a named something.
so Kinder Morgan's pretty much taking care of it anyway.
They have since I've been here, Jim. It was one of them roads that they gravelled and then they put a little extra 3/4 on it and they just maintain it. It's not a very wide road, 16 foot probably overall, most of it. And new landowners bought from the Halfies there and they bought that piece and they put the fence right on the edge of the road and we don't really go out there and put our footprint all over this thing, but it is green and we can help and we have assisted at times with blades and different things. So. But Kinder Morgan's pretty good at maintaining that road, yes.
Fits with the criteria as far as the conditions for making a
Right.
county road. Pretty much one of the top ones is providing access to.
Which is
public lands.
basically getting to all the BLM ground. Well, it's just going back to the road, because you can get to the BLM ground right at the end of the county road right there. I mean, so that's, you can stop there and walk anywhere you want to on the BLM ground. You just wouldn't be able to drive down to the connecting road, the 40, whatever that was.
I don't think the BLM wants to build a road all the way around it either to tie back.
No, I'm sure they don't.
from the meetings I've been involved in.
So I think it it sounded like anyway, unless she's, changed her position, and that can happen, but it was her position that this road was built, and from her perspective, it sounded like she always thought that it was supposed to provide public access. And it sounded like she would like to formalize that at this point, before she passes it off to her daughter or winds up selling it or something along those lines. It's potential that, if she happened to sell that property, we could see a gate go up there, and so a spot where we've traditionally had public access would be then shut off. And so I think that's kind of what she's got in mind too, is to try to get ahead of that a little bit.
Other questions?
Not at this time.
Can you just throw a wag at the fiscal note? I mean,
For the survey,
yeah.
we'll ask the oncoming county surveyor here, see what they can do, but, I would suspect a survey would be $2,000 to $3,000.
Okay. When do you have to have an answer?
I don't think we're under any hurry on this. She just wanted to get it squared away before she
Sure.
has to pass this property along.
Sure. I mean, from my point of view, just like anything else, we're approving something and it depends on dollars and cents, just like Spratlen said a minute ago, he had to break everything down to the pennies. I would at least like to have a pretty good idea of what we're spending. That's just my perspective. I don't have an issue with it being changed and moving the process on, but I think if we approve it, we should really know what we're, we could say it's $2,000 now and it comes up to be $20,000. Well, then that's two different things that we're putting a stamp of approval on. And that's all I have.
Yeah, I think we can generate some numbers, get an estimate together for that. This just looks like a good opportunity, and just wanted to get it in front of the commissioners so we could evaluate it and figure out what it's going to take to,
And
see whether or not we want to move forward with this or not.
sure, but like I said, I don't have any issues moving forward with it, because then we can look at the agreement as far as the maintenance on the other side with Rob and Kinder Morgan, and it may not turn out to be anything. That the HUTF that we get for it would come out as a wash, then that's, although there's not gonna be a lot of money on a 0.6 of a mile gravel road for HUTF, it's gonna be pretty insignificant.
We didn't spend a lot on 141 and make us a survey either. We did that whole thing down through the forest, and it wasn't very expensive. It was done pretty quickly,
Right.
done well.
So I would say as soon as you can get us an estimate on that so that we actually know what we're approving, I would feel more comfortable with that.
Sure.
Anything else, guys?
Not now.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. We'll continue the investigation then.
All right. Thanks. All right, next we have Dustin. And we're going to talk about our janitorial services and recommendations.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
Good. So we had a walkthrough and we had 6 companies come to that. I made it mandatory so that they could see what they were actually looking at. From there, between the bids that I received and references and talking to the companies, the ones on the Excel spreadsheet that I have highlighted in yellow are who I'm recommending. Do you have that?
Can you pull that up, Travis?
Okay. You just want me to go over them?
Sure.
When did you
Cam,
present
I'd
I
rather-
it for?
emailed them in.
I can go backwards and see if I can find them.
It was in our packet, but I can't hit my download button right now. It's not downloading. I don't know why it's not downloading. Anyway, do you have a copy that we can display on, can we display it on the Elmo?
What happened to Miss Vicky?
Yes, it's the only one that I can't.
Yeah.
Pull it up. Which one do you want? The Excel?
Oh, you can open yours?
Hold on, it's pulling up.
No, look at this. Oh, there it is. Now
Okay.
we got it.
Here we go. Okay, now that we have it up, go ahead, Dustin. Sorry.
So, after reviewing everybody's references, I propose that we use Monica for the combined courts and Care to do the Sheriff's Department, MoCo, and Road and Bridge. And then Taylor Betts for Annex 1, and then Superior Services for Administration and Annex 3. And there is copies of all the questions that I asked them in each of their packets there, the last 3 pages of each.
Are these the same as we had last year? Or these are all different?
They're all different. We didn't put it out for bid last year. We continued the contract.
Okay. So Superior Services for Admin and Annex 3, Taylor Betts for Annex 1. Is that a private individual?
Yeah, she was working for the company that's currently doing it, but she didn't want to bid on it again.
Okay.
So she's worked for her for quite a few years.
Monica's for the combined courts, okay. Do you have any questions, gentlemen, on the recommendation?
No, I don't.
Everybody's references, we're very happy with everybody, so no complaints anyhow.
Okay. All right, well, we'll put this on to our unfinished business tomorrow, and
Well, I'm
can
supposed
make-
to be here tomorrow
we
anyway.
can make an approval for that.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
All right, thank you, Dustin.
Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate it.
Okay, lastly on our agenda item for today is, and I'm gonna turn this over for Commissioner Copenhaver because of the testimony as it regards to water. Or
What's that got to do with water? This is a land thing.
land thing, whatever it is. Land, water, it's all combined. So,
Did you get a look through it, Ian?
I did, Gerald. You know, I mean, it looks pretty much like we've talked about. I think it's pretty consistent with what I've seen from the group and the reason that we put the NCA through. So, I mean, I don't really have any big thoughts on it. I think it's pretty consistent with what
I
we've seen.
didn't see anything either.
Yeah.
so do we need to sign that? Is that like a letter or something that we need to sign, or?
We need to,
What I would suggest we do is we make a motion to just approve it, because ultimately this is testimony that's being offered to Congress on behalf of all the groups in that work group, including the commissioners. And so what I would suggest is that we take it up during unfinished business tomorrow, just make a motion. That way our names are attached to it, and away we go.
yeah, we just need to make a motion to support that testimony as far
Yep.
as for the NCA.
Okay,
Yep.
We've done or support for the NCA, but we need to make a motion
For
to
the
support the testimony.
testimony that's going forward now.
Yes.
Because I was gonna say, we've already sent the letter.
We've got letters of support. Basically, what they're gonna do is they're actually gonna testify, though. And
Right.
so, and that testimony is what's in your packets and what's outlined, and so,
Yeah.
Okay.
yep. Pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward then, yeah.
And it really, I mean, really, everything in there aligns with our letter of support. I mean, it just provides a little bit more context. It talks a little bit about the history of the work group and then just goes into the reasons why the groups here think that the NCA is a good idea.
Okay. All right. Well, then we have it on the agenda for tomorrow already, so that one will be easy to
Yeah.
move forward. Okay, anything else?
I don't.
Okay. All right, with that, gentlemen, we've come to the end of our discussion for our workshop today. Immediately following, we have an E911 board meeting, so with that, we will close this workshop. All right, Travis? So, we will then go, now we will be functioning as the E911 board, and we have a board meeting, and we only have one discussion today. We have a request from Mr. Anderson, from SHS EMS. He had given us 3 proposals a couple weeks ago to look at, as far as its relationship to, basically software. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes.
You can come on down to a mic.
Just here to answer any quick questions.
I really don't have any other questions. Obviously, you had the three proposals broken down. The largest proposal was, I'm gonna call it under 10 grand because I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, but it was like 92, 95. Yeah, 92, 95. And then they were broken down significantly after that. So, Travis and I did look at that with Phaedra. There is enough money in there that we can do that. Because of the postponing of the payment of the Vesta 911 system, that's gonna be probably about this time next year, which will give us our funding that we approved for Q2 to start coming in for the rest of it. But that, I mean, we can't afford, I'll say just under 10 grand.
I don't have any
So-
problems with that.
Yeah. This will get them a distinct advantage for patient care, get there quicker and find it faster.
So just real quick, on your proposals, you had the quotes provided to Southwest?
Yes.
Yeah, so those quotes actually need to go to E911
Okay.
Authority versus going to Southwest.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Because
Yes, it does.
or E911 is the actual approving and oversight for those funds, so.
Should I have that emailed to you?
You can have it redone and emailed, and then I'll get it to the big, E911 board, but yeah, so that is showing to Southwest, so it needs
Yeah.
to be directed to E911.
Sure.
Yeah.
I'll take care of that. Good to go?
Good to go.
Yep,
All right.
that's
Appreciate your time.
pretty simple. All right. Thank you, Scott.
Appreciate your
Appreciate
time,
it.
Scott. Thank you.
All right, and with that, gentlemen, we have now finished what's on our agenda for the E911 board meeting, so.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to adjourn this E911 board meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.